Once upon a moonlit night in the parish of St. James, Jamaica, there stood a grand old plantation house called Rose Hall. The mansion was beautiful, with its tall columns and sprawling gardens, but it was also known for something far more sinister: the legend of the White Witch, Annie Palmer. Annie Palmer, or as the locals called her, the White Witch, was said to have been a beautiful but wicked woman who ruled over the plantation with an iron fist and a heart as cold as ice. The stories told of how she practiced dark magic, making deals with spirits and summoning duppies to do her bidding. They said that anyone who crossed her would disappear into the night, never to be seen again. But Annie Palmer had been dead for nearly 200 years, and Rose Hall had since become a tourist attraction. Yet, despite the passage of time, the legend of the White Witch continued to send shivers down the spines of those who visited the old mansion. One balmy evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, three tourists, Tom, Jerry, and Susie, arrived at Rose Hall. They were on vacation from England, and they'd heard all about the ghostly tales surrounding the mansion. But instead of being frightened, they were intrigued. Tom, always the prankster, decided it would be fun to stay the night at Rose Hall and see if the legend was true. "Come on, mates," Tom said with a grin. "Let's spend the night here and prove once and for all that the White Witch is just a bunch of hocus pocus." Jerry, who was easily spooked but didn't want to seem like a coward, hesitated. "I don't know, Tom. The locals say the place is haunted." Susie, who was always up for an adventure, nudged Jerry with a laugh. "Oh, don't be such a scaredy cat, Jerry. It's just a story. What's the worst that could happen?" With that, the three friends made their way into the mansion, armed with flashlights, snacks, and more bravado than sense. As they explored the dark hallways and grand rooms of Rose Hall, they joked and teased each other, daring one another to call out to the White Witch. "Annie Palmer," Tom shouted, his voice echoing through the empty halls. "If you're here, show yourself." Nothing happened. The mansion was silent except for the creaking of the old wooden floors beneath their feet. The friends laughed, feeling more confident that the ghost stories were just that, stories. But as they made their way up the grand staircase to Annie Palmer's old bedroom, the atmosphere began to change. The air grew colder and the shadows seemed to lengthen and move on their own. Susie, who had been leading the way, suddenly stopped in her tracks. "Did you guys feel that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jerry gulped, clutching his flashlight like a lifeline. "Feel what? That chill? It's like someone's watching us," Susie said, her eyes darting around the dimly lit corridor. Tom, trying to keep up the bravado, shrugged. "Probably just a draft. This place is ancient after all." But as they approached the bedroom, the door creaked open on its own, revealing a room bathed in pale moonlight. The bed, once luxurious, was now covered in dust, and the air was thick with the scent of old roses. On the bedside table sat a single candle, unlit but as if waiting for someone to ignite it. Susie, trying to break the tension, walked over to the bed and plopped down on it. "See? Nothing to worry about. The White Witch isn't here." Before she could finish her sentence, the candle suddenly flared to life, its flame casting eerie shadows on the walls. The room filled with a chilling laugh that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Jerry screamed and bolted for the door, but it slammed shut before he could reach it. Tom, wide-eyed with terror, grabbed Susie by the arm, pulling her off the bed. "We need to get out of here. Now!" But the room wasn't done with them yet. The laughter grew louder, and the bed began to shake as if something or someone was angry. The candle's flame flickered wildly, casting grotesque shapes on the walls, and the friends could hear whispering, though they couldn't make out the words. "Is this some kind of joke?" Tom shouted, his voice trembling. "Who's doing this?" But there was no answer, just more laughter, this time mixed with a low, menacing hum. Susie's eyes widened as she pointed to the mirror on the far wall. The once clear glass was now fogged up, and words were slowly appearing as if written by an invisible hand. "Leave before it's too late." Jerry, who had been inching toward the door, saw the writing and nearly fainted. "Too late for what?" he wailed. Tom, trying to muster the last bit of his courage, yelled, "We're not afraid of you, Annie Palmer. Show yourself if you're really here." The room fell silent for a moment, as if considering the challenge. Then, with a deafening crash, the mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, and the bed was suddenly flung across the room, slamming into the wall with such force that the floorboards shook. The friends huddled together in the center of the room, terrified and unsure of what to do. But just as quickly as the chaos had begun, it stopped. The candle's flame went out and the room was plunged into darkness. For a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of their ragged breathing. Then the door creaked open, revealing the hallway beyond. Without a word, the three friends scrambled to their feet and bolted from the room, racing down the stairs and out of the mansion as fast as their legs could carry them. As they reached the safety of the garden, they stopped to catch their breath, their hearts pounding in their chests. Tom, who had been the most eager to stay the night, was now pale as a sheet. Jerry looked like he might pass out, and Susie was shaking like a leaf. Well, Tom said after a moment, trying to laugh but failing miserably, "I guess that settles it. The White Witch of Rose Hall is real." Jerry, still clutching his flashlight, nodded furiously. "I'm never setting foot in that place again." Susie managed a weak smile. "At least we have a story to tell when we get back home, if we make it back home." Just then, they heard the faint sound of laughter drifting from the mansion. They turned to see the windows of Annie Palmer's bedroom glowing with an eerie light, and the silhouette of a woman standing at the window, watching them. Without another word, the three friends took off running, not stopping until they were far, far away from Rose Hall. And as they disappeared into the night, the White Witch's laughter echoed behind them, mingling with the rustling of the leaves in the warm Jamaican breeze.